Thank you, Mr. Mistry. I would request you to please come back on stage for a minute. I would like to call upon Ms. Preeti Vyas, Chairwoman and Chief Creative Officer for Vyas Gianetti, to please come on stage and felicitate our keynote speaker. A little heavy. Ma'am, could we have a photograph, please? Thank you, Mr. Mistry, for sharing an inspirational journey with us. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our next session for the day. Design is a constantly evolving science, with the best designers often pushing the envelope to the end and churning audiences at large. On the other side, technology and tech services are increasingly aligning with the design space, with a look towards the onset of perhaps the next revolution of design. Our esteemed panelists look to discuss how radical will the design landscape be in the next 5 years. While we set up the stage for our panel discussion, I would like to introduce you to the panelists as well as our chair for the session. Mr. Ravi Deshpande, founder and chairman, YNS Worldwide. Mr. Pradyumna Vyas, director, National Institute of Design. Ms. Preeti Singh, director, Highlight. Mr. Avinash Jhangiani, design thinking, cultural transformation, and innovation leader, CEO, Play to Transform. Ms. Priya Singh Dubey, founder, Rangreza. Ms. Mrinalini Ghadiok, editor, Mondoarc India, Stir. Chairing this panel would be Mr. Jimmy Mistry again, chairman and managing director, Della Group designer, hotelier, adventurer, and an entrepreneur. I would request all the panelists to please join us on stage.
Can we begin? Yes. Okay. The future of design. Very interesting topic, and I'm sure we will try and decipher whatever learning knowledge that we can for all of you, and that's been my endeavor each time I moderate a session. So let me begin with you to find out what is it that you think, in context to India, is going to be the future of design in the next 5 years?
So I kind of looked at this topic, and it's a pretty open-ended question, you know. I mean, you just now took us through a journey of your architectural, sort of combined with ideas of a different kind, life ideas, and then experiences all blended into one. But if you look at design landscape, I mean, from branding, from designing advertising, from packaging, then to designing retail experiences, from designing, now new platforms in terms of digital in regard to the products, UI, UX, etc. There is just like, everything is possibly inviting you to design things correctly, right? So there is nothing, right down to if you just sort of step out of your homes or offices, especially in this country, I think everything is screaming to be redesigned, so to speak. Yeah, so and the good news is that in the last few years, I remember I sort of set up a design cell. I used to be an advertising company, and then I set up a design cell in the early 90s, and that was quite a news. I mean, there were no design companies at that time. We were just trying to sort of bringing in the conversation in regard to sort of branding and packaging into the design. Now, since then, there's been a fair bit of journey India has taken in terms of bringing design intervention in multiple things, and looks like this journey will continue over next 5 years. So I see nothing sort of stopping from the journey to evolve. It's just that a little bit unfairly, our culture, our ecosystem didn't celebrate this space. Like if you look at Europe, or if you look at Japan or certain countries, they have a natural inbuilt design culture. Yeah, I mean, right down to even somebody's simple, modest home will have a cute balcony with some nice flowers and stuff. In this system, everything just grows erratically, and it's kind of, everything is sort of fighting for basic existence. So in a country like this, it does take time to really start appreciating design and then prevailing it to an extent that everything that that we see and experience will start to look beautiful. But the good news is it has started to change, and over the next 5 years, it'll evolve into something nicer, something bigger, and you will see more professionals coming into it. It's also going to demand a lot of talent to be able to cater to such a need. I know it ended up being slightly sort of longer answer. I'm sorry for that.
So I know what you rightly said is very precise. Design per se is huge, and when we talk of specifically design to architecture and interiors, the learnings need to be holistic. It's not just space planning, it's not just facade design, it's not just lighting design. UI, UX gets into it, the entire experience and journey gets into it, there's a branding that gets into it. My question to you would be, since you deal with architects, designers, and curate articles and carry articles that you think need to be given due weightage, don't you tend to agree with me that the future of design is interesting, but there is a lot of catching up for our design firms to do with respect to having a holistic understanding of design, that it's not just space planning, it's just not just material selection, but it's the entire user experience of the given environment that they're designing, be it a residence, a home, a master plan, township. What are your views?
No, I think, Jimmy, I completely agree with you. I feel design is very experiential in general, not necessarily architecture or space planning, but any sort of design. If you're talking about graphic or fashion or anything, it's, at the end of the day, what matters is how you experience it and how it emotes certain qualities in you. I think what is important, and where architecture is concerned, yes, we need to look ahead. There are a lot of architects who are, tending towards technology. They're trying to innovate. They're trying to invent. I think what becomes important is to look at more than invention, to look at innovation, where you can actually add value to what you're doing. And at some point to also stop and look back at, or perhaps just take a moment to kind of absorb what is going on around you. And because I feel that we are in this constant race of looking ahead to see what to do in the future, but to stop and kind of see that, where we're actually headed. Is there something that we can learn from the mistakes that we've made or the past that has been? So I think we're at a stage where it's important to do that at this point.
Yeah, but for any design firm to be able to understand value add, they need to achieve a certain amount of maturity, have to have certain amount of mixed usage of resources across, and a mixture of domain expertise across to be able to provide a holistic solution to a client. Most firms have a myopic vision of design, and that is what makes it very, very difficult in a market which is predominantly price conscious. And like he said, design is, I wouldn't say design is not respected, but design is not paid for. And if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So when I come to him, he'll agree with me that it's the easiest for a person to start a design practice. Every senior in your organization poaches onto the client, and the story goes on from all the old architects to the new generation architects. And hence, most of the new generation architects or designers have become drafting organizations for international global practices. So that gets me to to the next question. So what do you think, how is the onslaught of global design confluence on India in the last 10 years impacted? In all fields, it's just overall, everything, from fashion design to apparel design to digital design, graphic design, retail design, the entire user experience and journey in a residence, in an office, in a school. Schools never used to be designed by an interior designer. Now, no school can dare do anything without an architect and interior designer involved. What do you think, in your opinion, under such a situation, the onslaught of the international design firms and companies, how are the Indian design practices overall kind of living up to it or not?
Thanks for the question. My name is Priya. I belong from Rangreza. And I would like to tell you on a business perspective, because I'm not a core design person. So I'll tell you my perspective as a business person. I think design is straight away, you can connect with empathy with the person who is involved, who is working on the design. That person, for example, you said that how organizations are changing and how designers are paid lesser. than other people. I think because designers and the entire design concept of any organization is underrated. And they have been briefed by either sales people or marketing people or technology people dominates them sometimes. They run the show. In my opinion, when I started Rangreza, my entire organization, I have driven the entire organization on the design thinking process, and which we have created like sprint, and we have run through on the real time. So my opinion is that if you run through the entire design thinking process in an organization with utmost empathy for the person who is the end user, it becomes really great. Second thing, in terms of the international concept and India, I think government already is becoming sensitive about it. Niti Aayog is talking about design thinking professors, and they are inviting teachers on board for design thinking, because I think it's a very smart idea to put design thinking in a process and run through the business according to what people need. So I have built an organization. I was part of the organization which my husband and I built for 15 years almost. And it used to happen that we used to create logo and we used to go out and ask the users, how are you finding our products? Now we are changing in our new companies, both the companies. Now we do the design thinking, empathy exercise first, then we ideate, then we prototype, and then we decide, okay, is this going to work or not? Because we need to understand what people want. It used to happen that we used to implement it and we used to wonder why it's not working out. So I think if we are understanding people and understanding their need, it's very successful.
Thank you. Let me share my experiences of design thinking. I'm a great proponent of design thinking, not because design thinking is the word today. 2004, I don't know how many of you have heard of IDEO. IDEO is one of the foremost design institutions in the world, explaining design processes. 2004, I was fortunate enough to attend a 3-day workshop with IDEO, and that changed my way of thinking. You spoke of empathy in design, and she spoke of value add. So the whole design thinking process, if understood and followed, changes the entire scenario and why you're designing it. You're getting paid for it, that's one, that's a byproduct. But why are you designing it? And if the empathetic angle comes in, automatic value add comes on board. So you might design a small kholi in Dharavi, or you might do something very fancy in Kaf Parade, or wherever across in the country. But if the empathetic angle and the designer's initiative to be able to do a value add is run through a process of design thinking, of research, brief, prototyping, synthesizing the prototype, again going back to the discussion, again doing phase 2 prototyping, and coming up with the final product. Then if the process is followed, the whole thought process automatically evolves at an empathetic design. What do you think? How many design practices in India really scale up on design thinking or even apply design thinking processes?
Hi everyone, I'm Preeti Singh. I'm a founder of a company called Highlight, and we work with architects and interior designers all over the country and advise them on what decorative lighting to use and retail it to them. Unfortunately, I think we are very, very far behind on design. Increasingly, there is so much mental noise with all the technology and the apps, and I think we're all stuck to our phones 24/7, that when you said value add and you said, that was empathy in design, for me it's simplicity. There is so much mental clutter today, our minds are full instead of being mindful, that I hope that we see simplicity in design. When you're talking about an impact of the Western culture, I think we're at a stage of being very, very confused. Most projects you go to and you don't find, it's like a story. You know, they start with 2 protagonists and you go to the next room and suddenly there are 2 new actors in that room. So it's like a movie which is very, very confused today. And I think and I hope that we will become more authentic and simple instead of trying to ape everything we see and put it all into one single project and have not a single story to tell from that project. So for me, I think it's simplicity, and going forward, that is what I would love India to be, simple. Instead of just being on the backstage of manufacturing other people's designs, like India and China, we're manufacturing, we're just translating designs. We're not coming up with something authentic and original. When are we going to do that? When are we going to be original? When are we going to be authentic? When are we going to stop being jugadus and be somebody of excellence? So for me, I think that would be it, being original and being simple. And I hope we'll be there soon.
You said it quite right, being original, and not just like I used the word earlier, you pick up the inspirations, but at the end of the day, you need to value it and design something that's suiting to the environment that is there. My friend here, and I go a long way back because both of us have led turnkey interior organizations, and there are very few companies in the country who do turnkey and sustain and survive, I think, 2.5 decades. You've been there 2.5 decades? Team One? Yeah. No, sorry, NID. Team One was, okay. So NID, I've attended a session at NID, one of the convocation ceremonies of a friend of mine, and India's foremost design institution. I went through your CV and the amount of global design meets you've attended. The first thing that came to my mind is when I meet you, I'm going to talk to you. Two things. One is, are you really happy with the way NID is actually executing its curriculum, personally? Second, what can we learn from these international design expos and exhibitions that you attended in Korea, Japan, and other places? How can it translate into the Indian context, and how can our design meets be more meaningful and better learning opportunities?
All right. You see that NID was set up in 1961, much ahead of time. I would say that 61, in fact, the design was a fairly new concept in the world. Ullman Bawas, when it had come in 40s and 30s. So in 50s, if they can think of design, certainly it was a major thing. But let us look into why design has not really reached to the global level. It's because the India post-independence was what you call protected economy. And in protected economy, that people were happy with whatever market was there. Engineering institutions were teaching reverse engineering, and management was teaching selling the product. But innovation, because it has investment, people were not bothered. Go to Germany, pick up the design, come here, take the photographs of Italy, do something. So it is more of a reverse engineering thing is happening. We cannot blame design because people were not there to invest in design. And you see, there is also direct relationship. When countries do economically well, people start looking for choices. And that's why when you have extra money, you look for the choices, and there are designers are there. NID remained only design institute till 70s, and IIT came in around 70s. And now today, you see that India is booming economically. There are more than 150 design schools in the country and coming up every year. Like that, which is happening, that the growth is happening. Let me talk about future, because I think when we talk about future, we have to really look into that how it is, whole thing is going of the design process, thinking, systems, whatever you'd call. It started with signage and what you call graphic related thing in the textile and other thing. Next move to, you talked about Atores Sosas, the Memphis movement where the product started coming in, and there was a name of designers, whether it is Atores Sosas or whether it is Charles Eames or Herman Miller and all. So you see that these people started product specific. This is designed by Eames. This is designed by Atores Sosas, and you have pride to possess. That time is also gone. Now the time, next one is when the IT revolution has happened, and you see that started the experience design, interface design, interaction design, and you talk about the Internet of Things, how it is moving around, how it is making you, giving experience maybe in virtual sense, whether it is real sense, which is happening. But more than that, I would say that the design is moving towards strategic thinking. And that is called the systems thinking, and that is called the design process, where the governance will require, as you mentioned, the Niti Aayog will require a design thinking to have a better governance. The design systems which are operating, whether it's a public transportation, whether it is any kind of things to do, where the design as a strategic tool is going to be used. Future is fiction, but end of the day, that this technology which is moving so fast is an enabler. More technology will come. Many times people think the technology is design. But on the contrary, you have to understand the context and use the technology and take it to the next level. Today, India, you cannot say what is happening in India. India is a continent. You cannot really generalize India that everything is what is happening in Italy. Italy is just a small country, or France is just a small country. The entire Europe, you can put it in India. Socio-economic, cultural, economical diversities, weather diversities are there. So there is not like that, what is the design India way? I don't want to be pessimist, because designers cannot be pessimist. I would say the future is with India, especially in the design. And why? Because when you know that the Sustainable Development Goal which United Nations has brought in, NID, you talked about NID. We started this sustainable development thinking right from the day one. Today, people talk about multidisciplinary learning, cross-disciplinary learning in the higher education, which we started from the 1961. And that's why the strength of NID designers is whoever has really employed designers who are working with the company, they would say that the NID focuses more on the design process rather than the end result. And this process can fit in whether you are designing film, whether you are designing experience, whether you are designing interaction design, all gets into. But look at the future, what it is going to be. Future is where the sustainability and the human development, these two aspects are going to go. The world is not going to tolerate the abuse of the energy resources, and it is going to be the fact that there are going to be laws if you are going to use excessive energy. That's why the technology which is growing, whether it is disruptive, because there is a time of disruptive technology, and when these disruptive technologies are coming up, designers have to co-create, and it's time of co-create. If you talk about IDEO, it's totally nothing but the co-creation. The technology, design, social science, engineers all sit together on a table and they take. Designer is not Alibaba's thing that, okay, you just give something, because designer is one factor for anything which we are developing. And it's an important thing. Let us not live in the kind of dreams that designer is a creator of things. No, designer is one component who is putting all these kind of things together and taking it to the next level. I am saying that India is too big to generalize anything. There are pockets which can create better than Herman Miller. There are pockets which can have very far-fetched IT-related solutions, which whether we are in also fourth industrial revolution. When we talk about fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, robotics, the IoT, everything is coming up. And the designers have tremendous opportunity in the areas which country needs, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, all these areas which are very barren. I'm not coming from the interior and furniture areas, but I'm saying strategically for the national development, design is the future driver and differentiator which will be matching with the policymakers, the governance, the technocrats, social scientists, and taking this country to the next level. And I'm sure in 10 years or 5 years from now, India is going to emerge a very strong creative industry which will take lead globally.
You know, you mentioned about, said it very well, you mentioned about chief design officers and chief innovation officers in organizations. My question to you, I know of a lot of corporations and organizations at the top level who have already implemented design thinking thought processes and seen the results for themselves in how innovative and efficient their organizations have become, how empathy is really working very well for their overall productivity, how they are risk mitigating themselves by having a chief design officer so the business doesn't become obsolete, because today disruptive businesses are by the numbers. And all of us know they work on the consumer journey. and if you do not have a chief design officer within your think tank. So that's a position a lot of organizations on management boards are also getting in, a chief design officer. What are your views? Do you think the government of India is seriously thinking of contemplating and having something like a chief design minister? Because the fact remains on ground, even today, like I mentioned earlier, the government's mindset on design has not changed. And even today, that is why you see flyovers popping up, or you see walkways happening right on outside Bandra Kurla complex, which make you feel as if you're in East Africa in 1971. And it's been put up right now. Or they are so horrendously over-designed with blue lights and yellow lights, and you wonder with stringers attached right in the middle of Nana Chowk, you feel, is this confluence of design? Obviously, somebody has not really done any kind of design thought process and suited to the canvas of the area or been architecturally sensitive. So do you think things are going to change with the government trying to take something like a chief design minister of sorts?
Hello, are you able to hear me? Hi everyone, this is Avinash here. I won't be able to answer that question directly because I don't work for the government. I work with Niti Aayog and the Atal Innovation Mission. And I can assure you, I don't know about adults, but we are ensuring that design thinking, creativity, entrepreneurship and innovation are being embedded at all, I'll say across all ages, irrespective of the school you're from. You could be from a BMC school or from a government-aided school or from an international school. The idea is to, use design thinking to really help empathize, and I think we already used that word before. And also, in order to understand and really resolve India's grassroots issues, we need to keep ourselves in their shoes. And we need to start creating this ability to empathize, at an extremely young age. And is what, we are doing as, I would say the Atal Innovation Group. So I hope I answered that question of yours. Okay, so a little bit about design and the future of design. So I believe, design has evolved from being art and aesthetics into, I would say serious business. And the reason I say that is because at this point, we are saying that it lies at the intersection of new technology, behaviors, and how you run your organization. And I think guys who are able to, operate at that sweet spot and that intersection will be able to fuel India's growth, if you will, or their own organization growth, at least for now. And I think we really need to understand that a lot of large organizations in India understand how to do business. We can easily, bring in any tech enabler and, implement any new technology like, artificial intelligence, AR, VR, IoT, XYZ, all kinds of tech. But I think a lot of us are still, in some way, struggling with how do we change the way we think as humans. Because unless we don't evolve, we will not be able to crack that spot of, I would say, evolution into the new age of digital transformation, and a lot of that which has been happening out there. And I think the biggest obstacle is our inability to really keep ourselves in the user's shoes. And it could be, an educator. Being able to have an educator empathize with a child. Having, your CEO be able to empathize with the employees. And then, externally, I would say externally looking at users who are actually bringing in that revenue, empathizing with them. And I think a lot of this really has to change and fuel that kind of growth. So with that, if it's okay, I'll do a quick empathy exercise, if that's okay.
Yeah.
A 1 minute one with the audience, if
Sure,
they are
go ahead.
only listening.
Absolutely.
So we all have 3 fingers, right, guys? Unless you're Ritik, you have 6, maybe. I don't know. Right? If it's okay, if you can create an E and have it on your head. Create an E in some way, right? E for empathy, right? Actually, I just gave out the clue. And right, it's a good, if you don't mind, I'm going to use this for Instagram. Yeah, if you can just, draw an E on your forehead, right?
Oh, that'll make a nice picture.
Yeah, you can keep it down now. Thank you.
None of us get paid.
Well, you asked me to speak, so. Well, I didn't see a lot of E's. So did you create an E with us in the viewpoint or with yourself in viewpoint? If you did it with us, which means you're already empathizing, right? And your ability to do that, if you did that, it's not correct. It's not an E then.
No.
Okay. And I think it's all about that, right? You have to learn from your failures, and you got to fail fast, hopefully, right? The idea is that, and I think is what we are seeing designed to evolve, really to impact business growth. And it's not just about aesthetics. So
before we end the round, bang on time, I would love to take a couple of questions from the crowd. You can ask the questions to any of us. Can we just have some microphones, please?
Jimmy, I'm a loud Punjabi from Delhi, and I'm very proud of it. I was, except the last 10 minutes, I sat through your presentation. You work with lots of media companies, but me and Lulu were saying, did they spend so much money on some of your work that 3 of them bought? This is not a serious question. You're not.
Hopefully not. No, it was absolute fun. And the reason why they would select us is because of expertise in acoustics, air conditioning. Media requires their live rooms, edit rooms, smoke rooms, live on-air television, radio requires a certain amount of technicalities. So we were always on the cutting edge of technology, learning very fast and applying it. Also, I would never blink an eyelid before going to global firms like Star TV. Before they could realize, and they spoke about their boardroom in Hong Kong. I remember next week I was there in Hong Kong. So what happens is when you respond that way to the clients, you've seen, we did a boardroom for them, which was more technologically advanced than Hong Kong. That shocked, and the news went right across to the big boss. What I'm trying to say is designers need to put in that extra effort into it. Okay, yes. Can we have the microphone there at the back?
I would request you to identify yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Quickly, can somebody
Hello?
take the mic at the back?
I think we have a lady over here.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ishita. I'm from Steelcase. And thank you very much, panelists. It was a brilliant conversation and very insightful. Thanks a ton. There's just a can of worms that I wish to open. And my question to all of you is, with the kind of onslaught of artificial intelligence and technology that we're talking about in the future of design, and in today's day and age where we have technology that is developing buildings and designing buildings by itself without any human intervention, do you think humans at some level are becoming obsolete? That's the first question. There's just one more question. Does that also mean that artificial intelligence is becoming too intrusive for human beings? Two
I
questions.
think questions are nice. I'm
wanna
sure,
give it a
I'm sure
shot,
my
sir?
panelists can talk. My take on it is pretty simple. For the first part of the question, I think it'll require a whole next 1 hour debate if you have to really get onto that debate. But in a single line, if I were to put it, if buildings were being designed using AI purely, they'll lack the soul. They will not tell a story. And to me, a design that doesn't give a story or lacks the soul. Classic example, Bellagio Water Show is fantastic. The world over, people see it and love it. But to me, Akshardham Water Show is far more better because it has a soul, it has a story. So Ahmedabad Akshardham has almost the same intelligence in the water show, including it as a story of Nachiketa and Yamdut, which adds the soul. And this has come through deep-rooted design thinking deployed by the sadhus at the Swaminarayan temple. So when French architect Pipa designed it, had they just given him the money and told him to do a water body, he would have done a beautiful show with some music playing in the background, the way it plays in Dubai or any other place. It lacks the soul. This has a soul. AI can't do that. So that's my take on it.
Can I just...
Sure.
You see, very interesting question you have put in Indian context if you look. If you try and copy the Western style, Western understanding of IoT and artificial intelligence, obviously it is going to damage because jobs will go away and manufacturing will be autonomous and all. But when there are challenges, there is also opportunity. And I would say that this is a great opportunity for India to use artificial intelligence, big data, and this we're talking about robotics. is that sometimes it's very difficult to provide services in remotest parts in Northeast where it is very difficult to go. But with this Internet of Things, the medical and other services you can provide on those areas. So I think this disruptive thinking, if we take it in a very systemic manner, lots of good things can happen in a country like India with all these emerging technologies.
I'm just going to add one thing since I'm a digital guy forever, right? So 3 skills I believe humans will need in order to differentiate us from AI and robotics. One is creativity, two is the ability to work with each other or interpersonal skills, and 3 is being curious. So 3 C's really, right? Being, keeping that curiosity up. And I don't think any of these 3 skills, AI or robotics, will ever be able to do. It's that human-to-human interaction and that ability to, feel emotional. Right? I mean, is one thing, I would say about, differentiation.
The last question. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
My name is Anant, and my question and view is a little dystopian. You spoke of town planning, sustainability, architecture. The last impressive Indian town planning, to me, was Mohenjo-daro, the Indus Valley civilization, with town planning and water and sewage. Architecture in Bombay, our city, Mumbai here, it's just towers of steel, air conditioning, negative emissions, or positive emissions, not negative emissions, in all manners. So where is the design here? Where are we going? Like I said, dystopian.
Okay. My take on it is pretty simple. There are good and bad examples. Overall, I completely acknowledge the fact 99% it's been bad. In Bombay city, in Mumbai city, if you have to actually talk about, Mancheji Edilji Joshi was a town planner who came in from UK, studied, came back. One of the most finest master planning jobs done in the city of Mumbai has been done by that grand old man. And that's how we have the other Parsi colony, Hindu colony, and the Matunga colony, and the 5 garden circles. That's one of the finest master plan areas, and there's the only master plan area in the city of Mumbai. After that, nothing else has been master plan. And it might be just on development norms and FSI and FARs. But unfortunately, that's the truth. You look at what's happening across to most of the cities which have organically grown, and they've not been really thought of and planned and zoned the way they should have been. But that's the reality, hota hai chalta attitude. And like he said, even a balcony is so beautifully taken care of. But in India, it's fine. We have a balcony. We'll hang clothes. We'll do whatever. Anyway, that's the irony of the situation. Hope things would change in coming years, and hope many more Mancheji Joshis will come back to India or will be produced in India and impact our lives in a positive way. With that, we come to a closure. Thank you all for being here. I hope all of you appreciate the important time that our panelists have taken out of the busy schedules to share their ideas, opinions, and experiences. I hope you take back some amount of knowledge, and it has been worth time spending with us. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us as much as we've enjoyed conducting this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mistry. I would request all the panelists to please stay on stage. And I would request Mr. Mistry to please felicitate all the speakers with a token of our appreciation.
We'll start with the ladies. That's a heavy one, huh?
Oh, thank
Thank you.
you. Oh. Thank you. Thanks so much.
That's for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We must catch up. Thank you, my friend. Pleasure meeting you, and we should catch up. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.